Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another one of my tweet videos. Jeff Tidwell here. And of course, you can find me at RealJeffTidwell on Twitter, at RealJeffTidwell on Gab, at BladeJB343 on Minds.com. And I'm now also on Parler at RealJeffTidwell and Telegram, Jeff Tidwell. So, of course, you can also find me on BitChute. So if you're not watching this video on YouTube, you're watching it on BitChute. I recently moved over there. And I'm finding the free market to be pretty cool. Getting a lot of viewership, a lot of good commentary, a lot of subscribers. Well, not so many, but, you know, enough. Enough for now, considering that I don't have much content and I'm still working on my craft. So, speaking of working on my craft, some may wonder why I'm going back in time with each of my tweet videos to, in this case, October 2018, and going further backward in time. And part of that is just because I like to practice my craft, get better at what I'm doing, and I do have some newer tweets and things that I'd like to talk about in fuller detail, but I wanted to start with things that, well, I wasn't making videos in 2018, I am in 2019, so hey, why not just go back and cut my teeth on those older tweets. So if you do enjoy this content, as anachronistic as it may be, please do like, subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications, and if you find my cadence to be a little on the slow side, you can hit the 2x speed button and get all of the information in half the time. So, as time is the currency, that's double bang for your buck. And again, I do hope you enjoy the video. So, onward and upward, let's start reading some tweets. So the first tweet we're going to talk about today, from October 2018, when the U.S. midterm, the 2018 U.S. midterm was coming up, and people were talking a lot about politics. In this case, I talk about politics in epistemology. So, on politics and epistemology, I advocate for two things, separate but interweaving. A, unrestricted knowledge for all, and B, my philosophical and political positions. A allows B to evolve over time. There are no right or wrong concepts in my purview. They are subjective and contextual. So, the next tweet after this I will read as well, and then we'll break them both down in order. True neutrality is an illusion, an ideal. True perfection is a fallacy, an abstract. To achieve either, we need an environment with hard parameters, a box. Now, what are the dimensions of the box? Which dimensions can be changed, and which changes are beneficial? Knowledge is power. So, to start here, talking about politics and epistemology. Now, politics has a clear definition. You can check the dictionary. I do understand politics to mean sort of the way that money is used to some degree. It's like how resources are allocated and, you know, who is in control of our government, who is in control of the kingdom, as it were. There's all these different definitions to what politics mean, the power dynamic. Epistemology, of course, is regarding the search for information, the proliferation of information, the quest for information. It's all about the science and path to information. Again, seek subject matter experts, look it up on Wikipedia or a more credible outlet, but check in the dictionary if you'd like to know more about these terms. So I advocate for two things, separate but interweaving, of course. And the first is unrestricted knowledge for all. So I consider myself pro-information, pro-free speech, and I think that people should be able to search for the truth however they see fit, within the confines and constraints, of course, of the law. But sometimes the law needs to be broken for the truth to become clear and evident. In the case of, say, a whistleblower, it might be against the law for Edward Snowden or Julian Assange or any of these people that have created transparency in our governments or in corporations. It may be against the law. It may be against internal non-disclosure agreements for them to give information to the public and let them know about what's going on. But I still do believe that the public deserves to know the truth, and you deserve to know the truth, as do I. So I like to maintain a sort of pro-information framing on life and on the pursuit of information. I like to, that's sort of redundant, but I do not like this idea, this modern religion of censorship that destroys information, limits information, creates echo chambers where certain information is pushed away. And people can develop cognitive dissonance if they get used to just one narrative, one story, one side. I say don't be don't be stuck in an echo chamber. Be a both sidesist, Listen to, two arguments or more for any given case, and you'll have a much better time reaching the truth, which lies between, of course. The truth isn't on the left or the right. In the context of politics, it really, there's certain truths on the left and certain truths on the right, but together, when you look at both sides, you get a clearer picture of the approximation in the middle of what is closer to the truth, closer to the, how would you say, the solutions you're looking for. One side, it's like, talking about the transfer of power in politics. One side has their motivations, the other side has their motivations. They may be both moral and economic, they may be scientific, there may be all these different factors in play that make them say things and not say things that are important, and they'll say things and not say things that are important. They'll keep, they'll withhold certain truths and information because it doesn't benefit their argument. In politics, that's why we consider it to be a post-truth realm. So, of course, I do advocate for unrestricted knowledge for all. I don't want to hold back any information. I don't want to hold back any uncomfortable truths. And I try to cast a critical eye on those that would. I think that it's perhaps a miscarriage of authority when they do that. That's my philosophy and political position, which of course, I do advocate for my philosophical and political positions. So I don't, portend to be neutral or balanced. I am in the search for neutrality and balance. I am in the search for these things. But I'm not here saying that, I listen to both sides. I'm a both sidesist, so I got all the answers, or I have some sort of, higher form of enlightenment. I'm as unenlightened as you are. But I'm on the search. I'm on the search for enlightenment, and I don't want any roadblocks in the way. I don't want people telling me I can't say this or listen to this person or listen to that person. If they have verified information, truth, if they have empirical evidence, if they have stuff, if they're saying things that have scientific veracity, I want to hear it. I don't want to be limited by ethos and someone saying, well, this person is X. This person is a negative term, so you can't listen to what they say. They were wrong that one time, so everything they say is wrong. I don't believe in that philosophy or on epistemology. I don't look at somebody and say, well, you're off limits. I can't listen to anything you say. It's all wrong. Certain people have more credibility than others, but I don't like to look at people for their identity. Like to look at them for their ideas and their character. And yeah, if somebody's lying all the time, yeah, I might stop listening to them because their credibility is down. Down to the comments section where you can leave a comment below if you have any thoughts on this. Tell me who I shouldn't listen to, or who I should. And maybe I'll get a little more enlightened in the process. So I do advocate for my philosophical and political positions. I am biased. As anybody else, I have in-group preference. I have some things I like that are out-group. I look at people that are different from me, people that have different views, and I go, well, what can I get from this that has some merit, some benefit? But A, the unrestricted knowledge allows B, my philosophy and my politics to evolve over time. So I try not to stay too echo-chambered. I say, it's good to have an echo chamber to retreat to, sort of a vacation spot to rest your mind, don't have anybody challenge your opinion for a little while, but you wouldn't want to live there. You wouldn't want to live there, okay? We have certain places on the internet, for example, just in the context of Reddit. People talk a little bit about the echo chamber that is the Donald. Still quarantined, by the way, because of a Media Matters article. But they have an area on the site. They have another subreddit called Ask the Donald. That's the non-echo chambered version of the Donald, where people can ask questions and provide dissenting opinions about President Trump and, of course, conservative politics or the kind of politics that the Trump administration supports. So there's a case where you have your echo chamber, the Donald, where you can't really, the rules literally say you can't criticize or have a dissenting opinion about Trump. And then you have a center area, a debate center called Ask the Donald, where people can actually, be intellectual and not just part of the Donald Trump fan club. Now that's a very clear distinction. That's a very clear distinction. But a lot of times, you don't see that on the internet. You'll see places like, for example, in the context of Reddit, you have Our Politics, which has become largely an echo chamber for the social justice disciples and the Clintonite left. Not so much your socialists, your comrades, your Chomskyites, or, your anarchists. It's more the Democrat, sort of neoliberal, social justice warrior left that you see in politics. So it's really kind of an echo chamber, even though it purports to be a neutral space where all politics can be discussed. So you do see that across the internet. You'll see certain websites, certain journalistic outlets that are, they'll say, well, we cover politics, but it's pretty clear that they're either right-wing or left-wing. There's not a whole lot of debate there. Now, Real Clear Politics is one I recommend because they actually go ahead and they try to include some views from both sides of the aisle and all over politics, libertarians as well, and socialists and people that don't fall into that simple, red-blue, left-right dichotomy, those sort of false dichotomies. I say it's a political sphere myself. I say it's a bit more nuanced than you can say, just you're on this side or you're on that side. You're the other or you're the other. There's only two ways to go. I consider that binary to be kind of limiting. So there are no right or wrong concepts in my purview. They are subjective and contextual. And what this means is that there's a time and a place for almost anything. At different points in time, in different places in the world, past, present, and future, there will be times when you want to actually tick the box or move the slider a little more, from the left or to the right or up and down on different vectors. Maybe you need a little bit more socialism right now. Or maybe you need a little bit more capitalism right now. Maybe you need a little bit more military right now. Maybe you need a little less military right now. Maybe in 2050 we'll not need to be focusing on fossil fuels so much. We'll have more nuclear. Maybe it's better to focus on coal for now, even though it's very dirty and it's outdated. And once coal is completely off the market, we get rid of it. These are just examples of what I'm talking about. At one point in time, certain forms of war were more acceptable. We had to fight to take out the Nazis, which, by the way, it's a good thing I don't monetize my videos, because if I did, just by saying the word Nazi, which, by the way, I get called every other day on Twitter, because people are ignorant of my actual political and philosophical positions, you would get demonetized for using such words. So it's a good thing I don't worry about that. I just say what I want, and hopefully people watch the videos and enjoy. So there's always a time when you might want to up the ante on one thing and bring down another thing. It's not like there's ever an absolute position where it's like, well, you always want more capitalism, always. You want to expand the free market, always. That would mean there's no balance there. There's no, you're taking an absolute position and you're not thinking too far in terms of like in certain contexts, again, at certain times and in certain places, that might be the best way to go. But it's not always the right answer. Socialism, not always the right answer. Maybe a few more social programs here, expand in the context of the United States, expand Social Security, expand Medicare, but you can't do these things forever. You can't just hold this constant position. And this is part of what I think is wrong with the social justice modern religion. I ask the question in past videos and in some of my tweets. I say, what's the end game here? Are you going to fight for the same exact thing forever? Like, at what point is your axiom of equity and equality the thing you're fighting for? That you have faith that your ideology, that your collectivist ideology is going to help you, succeed in achieving. Like, what is the end game? Do you have an absolute position where you just continue and continue and continue? Or is there a point where you turn the slider back the other way and say, okay, enough is enough. I think we've achieved equality. We've achieved equity. We've achieved love. Even though social justice is more about redirecting hate than establishing love, it's more about enabling otherism than disabling it. That's why I'm pretty much agnostic on the modern religion that is social justice. But these are the kind of questions I'd ask. I'd say, when is it time for this thing that we think is right or wrong? When does it become wrong or right? When does the tide turn? When does the situation change? So, I move on to say here, true neutrality is an illusion, an ideal. So, to be truly neutral, to have no bias at all, you almost have to not even know something exists. It's really hard. The first impression is very important. It's very, very, very hard to be truly 100% neutral, especially when you're dealing with human beings. Instantaneously, you have empathy, you have sympathy, you have in-group preference that gives you a bias to what's going on. I see somebody that, I can put myself right into their shoes right off the bat. So I'm not neutral. I already feel a kinship. They're human beings. I already feel connected to the situation. I'm not neutral. I can be close to neutral, but I really can't be, because I'm connected to them. I have in-group preference to human beings. That's why I call myself a humanist. Some people don't like me using that term, but I say I look out for human beings first. I'm not concerned about animals. Yes, human beings are technically animals. We are creatures. But I focus on the well-being of human beings, and then we look at animals second, because frankly, that's, in my mind, the best way to go. But of course, you may disagree. If you're an animal rights activist, please leave me a comment below with your derision. But true neutrality, true neutrality is an ideal. True perfection is a fallacy, an abstract. So to achieve either true neutrality or true perfection, we need an environment with hard parameters, a box. Okay, so what this means is that perfection is an abstract, it's an ideal. Different people have a different idea of what perfect means. You know, you have to have a solid limit on what you can do. You have to have a box, a very limited amount of possibilities, so that if you hit every possible positive vector, you turn up all the positives and turn down all the negatives, in that box, in that limited set of possibilities, you get perfection. You get the perfect outcome. So if you're playing a video game that has an ultimate, one ultimate high score you can get, that way, if you can achieve that high score, if you can make every possible correct decision leading up to that winning scenario in a limited environment, a box, then you can achieve perfection. But in terms of, ideas, in terms of human beings, everyone having their own subjective view on the world, all 7 billion perspectives, well, perfection in that context is a fallacy. So we have a box here. What are the dimensions of the box? Like how big is the box? What are the possibilities? How many things can we do? Where can we go with this box? How difficult is it to achieve perfection? What is the scenario we're looking at? What's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? Do we have the tools we need to handle this box, to handle this situation, to get an outcome that we can be happy with? What are the dimensions of this box? Which dimensions can be changed? So if you have a box, a situation that seems to have only so many options, well, where can you expand the box to allow for more options, to allow for more possibilities and more solutions to the problem at hand? Are you going to think in the box, stay inside the box, and not allow for any sort of outside the box thinking? Because what if the box, you might have an image that the box is just this one thing. It's a 10 by 10 square. It's perfect. If we just fill all 100 squares inside the box, that's perfection. But what if we're not aware that there's the possibility of expanding the box? What if the box could be 150 squares? What if it could be 200 or 1,000 squares? Which of those parameters, which of those sides of the box can be pulled off to reveal more box or more space to move? So it's very important to know which dimensions can be changed, which changes are beneficial. Is it better to expand the box? Is it better to contract the box? Should we have fewer options when we're dealing with a situation? Or should we have more? Should we be more free? It's possible that with more options, chaos might be more likely. But should we allow for that? Maybe. Maybe we should allow for more potential for chaos because it may give us a higher potential for success. Sometimes systems, when they're developed from the ground up, and they're not top down, but they're ground up, they do have more potential for chaos and for things happening that we are not happy with. A top-down system tries to control for every single scenario, every single situation. But, we can only get so far controlling the environment. Some things work better with top-down management. Some things work better with bottom-up. Grassroots, just organic growing, vines growing up. I actually kind of frame it just like the political compass, where I say, you have the bottom that is more libertarian and the top that is more authoritarian. You have the left and then you have the right. So when you have authoritarianism, you have people coming from the top down trying to control things, trying to manage things. For example, you're trying to be a totalitarian system where some greater authority controls the outcomes of everything. And then you have a more libertarian system where each individual person or family or smaller groups control their own fate a bit more. They have a bit more of a say. There's less of an authoritarian stance on all these issues. They make their own decisions. They keep things going on the grassroots. So it's kind of a cool framing. Which changes are beneficial? Now, how would you know which changes are beneficial if you didn't have knowledge? That's why knowledge is power. This all sounds very rote. It's very cliche. Knowledge is power. Yeah, Jeff Tidwell, knowledge is power. We know that. We saw that on PBS 30 years ago. But it's true. And in this world of censorship, in this world of social engineering, where Google is literally social engineering their search results, when you're on your epistemological journey looking for information and trying to gather information, the science of gathering information, epistemology, you are using something like Google or DuckDuckGo or any of these services. And if they're going behind the scenes and making it so that certain search options are more likely to come up regardless of their veracity, regardless of their popularity, they're socially engineering, and social engineering is censorship. It's trying to ensure that people only have certain options. They can't see this possibility. They can't see that possibility. You're being shepherded. I don't want to use the wrong word about what you are if you're being shepherded around, but you're being shepherded to a specific outcome. And the way they achieve that is the modern religion known as censorship. They remove information. I call it limiting information and stacking contradictions. That's one way that they confuse people in the news media and in places where they want to control you. They stack contradiction after contradiction after contradiction, trying to confuse. They conflate this. They use word thinking on that. They apply a postmodern, post-truth filter to something and say, you know what? Everything is a construct. That's just a construct. Those words, I can change the reality just by saying, hey, it's a construct. We can change it at will. But of course, as some might know, when you combine postmodernism with absolutism, well, that's where you run into clown world. Oh yeah, absolutely. You'll run right into clown world because you'll have people saying that everything is a construct. It's just a construct. We can change reality as we see fit. But, here comes the absolutism, you are absolutely your immutable characteristics, your religion, your profession, whatever it might be. That is who you are. That's the group you are a part of. And there's no, any associations you may have, the people you talk to, the videos you watch, the books you read, the TV shows you watch, things you look at, the people you associate with are you, with no gray area. That's clown world, because they're both saying, well, we're going to create a postmodern ideology where we're determining what reality is based on words and on ideas, but then we're going to use an absolute filter and say, well, you are this. There's no gray area. There's no individuality. You are your skin tone. You are your sex. You are your gender. And we're going to socially engineer you and move you around and adjust the parameters of the box. Adjust your potential based on the privilege you have. The privilege, they say, given to you by your immutable characteristics. You could be terrible at life. You could be terrible at what you do. You could have been dealt an awful hand. You might be dealing with a deck that's under 52 cards. You might have a bunch of jokers in there. You might have a couple of cards that tell you the rules of a few card games. You might be a couple marbles short of a full batch. But because of your immutable characteristics, you're absolutely this and you're absolutely that. And of course, that's the combination of postmodernism and absolutism. You get really a mess. Clown world. Clown world. Just a construct. So. So we are coming up, and it seems a little bit early to say this, but we are coming up on the 2020 U.S. election for president. President Trump is running as an incumbent for the Republican side, and of course we have about 23, but really about 5 or 6 viable candidates on the Democrat side. And I talked about this back in 2018 for the midterm, but this kind of goes for young people voting in 2020 as well. So, 2 young people voting for the first time. Here are some tactics used to control you. A. Propaganda. B. Wedge issues. C. Identity politics. D. Fear and shame. And anger. Anger. And E. Virtue signaling. So if you intimately acquaint yourself with these terms, you'll have an easier time finding your truth. So let's go through these one by one. For the young people voting for the first time. So if someone was telling me about this the other day. They said about 4 million people, at least 4 million people that weren't old enough to vote in 2016 in the United States elections will be old enough to vote in 2020. So I'm not saying that young people are more impressionable, but young people are more impressionable. I'm sorry, guys. I'm 35 years old. I remember being 18, 19. It was a bit different back then, admittedly. We didn't have the internet the way we do now. We did have it, but it wasn't ubiquitous. Twitter, Facebook, social media wasn't as big. It wasn't even around when I was your age. If you're 16 or 18 watching this, we didn't have that until about 2007, 2008. And things were just much different. Like we had forums. We had, I think Reddit was pretty early on. We had message boards. We had, CompuServe and AOL. They had places you could hang out. But nobody was, I don't remember, growing up and seeing a lot of people talking about politics like everywhere. It wasn't like, everything is politics. Nowadays you'll hear people say, everything is politics. It's in our TV shows. It's in our comic books. It's on Netflix. It's on Twitter. It's everywhere. It's at award shows. Wasn't that ubiquitous back then? Like the culture, the paradigm now has changed a little bit. It's a little bit different. So the first thing you have to look out for, tactics used to control you, propaganda. And this is for the left and the right. I mean, this isn't a partisan issue. People are putting out information to persuade you to their side. It's as simple as that. And the news organizations, the ones you trust, the bigger ones, and the smaller ones, and the mollusk media, the independents, everybody has an agenda. Like I said, I do have my political positions, my philosophical positions. But I try to keep as much of an open dialogue going as possible. I don't want to get people bogged down. Like, obviously I have a message. Obviously I do. And I think transparency is key with this, you know. And what you're not seeing when you look at Fox News or CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, MSNBC, any of these major outlets, New York Times, Washington Post, Washington Times, all these places, you're not really getting explicitly where their biases lie. Now, if you study politics, the people watching this video that, you know, hang around the political realm all the time are like, come on, Jeff, stop being strangely sanctimonious and weird. We know that the New York Times is really left-wing and Fox News is really right-wing. Well, hey, maybe this video isn't for you. But stick around, you may find something you like. So, propaganda's out there. These news media companies, they are working many times, as WikiLeaks showed, hand in hand with, they're working hand in hand with the Democrat and Republican parties. It's not as simple as just, oh, you know, they're neutral. We're fair and balanced. No, you're not, Fox. You work directly with Trump, directly with the RNC. You're not fair and balanced. CNN, we are arbiters of the truth. What is their slogan? Somebody tell me their slogan in the comments section below. But they act like they're neutral. Well, we're the neutral. Our brand is neutral. We listen to every side. And I go, yeah, you know, and then you condescend to them on air. When you had the Libertarian and Green parties on in 2016, you had Jill Stein and Gary Johnson is pretty easy to make fun of and pretty easy to condescend to. Of course, usually he's high. Yeah, makes it a little bit easier, doesn't it? But, you know, they pretend to be fair and balanced and neutral. But if you look at their actual coverage, if you look carefully and analyze how they frame things in their news articles, in their news stories, the terms they use, the way that they try to mind read and they try to paint people a certain way. Oh, Trump was angered by this. Oh, this person here was angered by that. Oh, they're trying to assign emotions to people. And to you, and to me. They're trying to make us feel a certain thing. You know, may it be doubt, fear, anger, any of these things. They're trying to do that, and they're doing it through propaganda. Okay? They're spreading post-truth information. They're spreading things that are only on one side sometimes. That's one way you can actually tell. Scott Adams has talked about this. One way you can tell if news is fake news is if only one side reports it. Like if you only hear it on the right or the left, yeah, there's a good chance that it's partisan bullshit. You know, especially if they have anonymous sources. Anonymous sources say this. Something really hard to believe. Anonymous sources say that. You know what doesn't have anonymous sources? WikiLeaks. And to some degree, Project Veritas and other investigative journalists. Disobedient media, okay? Adam Carter. These people they have sources. They have places where you know information came from, people that weren't afraid, okay? Now, not every single Project Veritas source is, known or transparent. Like they had Eric Cochran from Pinterest that talked about how they were biasing search results against conservatives and against pro-lifers. Of course, I'm pro-choice, but I do think that the pro-life message holds a ton of merit, and it is the pro-science position on abortion. So I think it's important that we actually we allow that information to be out there. Like I said, knowledge is power. I'm pro-information. Even if I disagree with your conclusions, even if I think it's wrong, I think free speech. Free speech, okay? And let people come to their own conclusions. That's the best way forward. It's not perfect, but it's the best we have. But then Project Veritas, they also had another guy, the Google leaker, that said, I don't want my identity to be known because I'll never get to work again. I'll never get to give you any more information. Like, it's better than I'm anonymous. And here are some verified documents. Here are some things from within Google. So he actually gave some things that backed up his story, that gave him credibility. So him being anonymous wasn't ideal, of course. It would be better if we knew exactly who was providing the information. But it's just like WikiLeaks. Like, we don't know exactly who hacked or leaked from the DNC or got into Podesta's emails. If you read the Mueller report, you might, say, oh, well, if you listen to CrowdStrike, you might get one side of the story. They'll say, oh, it was Russia, who also helped President Trump get elected. No collusion, no obstruction. That's in the Mueller report. But of course, as Scott Adams also says, there are two movies on one screen. Two people can look at one document and see two different things. Okay? But, both sides of the political spectrum were saying back in 2016 that this story doesn't make any sense. There's not enough evidence. And we know about evidence, innocent until proven guilty with evidence. And Russiagate never provided that. But it's a fun investigation to go on. Join Bob Mueller in the Manafort investigation. You too can be a detective and get President Trump impeached, which of course will drop everyone's 401ks. But hey, who cares? Because Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad. That's all I care about. I don't care about the cost-benefit analysis of getting rid of him. I don't care about anything else. I just care about emotions. Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad. So you'll have wedge issues. Now these are becoming less and less important. And it is a hot day, so you'll see some sweat on me here. Definitely the middle of July 2019. It's a couple of days after July 4th, so I'm definitely melting a little bit, but we will soldier on and we'll deliver whatever this is. So wedge issues. These are things that are controversial, that about half the people, give or take, might disagree on. For example, abortion. Here's an issue where most people, even a lot of conservatives, agree that limited abortions should be allowed. Pragmatically, it should be allowed. There are different arguments. I don't really want to get into the abortion discussion during the course of this video today because it's complex. It deserves its own video. And there's also the possibility that maybe as a male, I should not, I believe I am entitled to my opinion, but it may lower the credibility of the female voice if men are talking about the issue. Really, women should decide. Women should have the loudest voice by a very large margin, if not the full thing. Obviously, when it comes to finances and so on and so forth, fathers should be involved in the decision-making process, but at the end of the day, it is a woman's body. It is a woman's choice, in my opinion. So I'm not sure if I want to talk about that, but that is a wedge issue. That's something that drives a wedge in between two groups of people, pro-life, pro-choice. And they go, well, this is something that if we don't watch out, the other side is going to take this thing away. You don't want them to take it away, right? If you vote for the Republican, you're going to lose your abortion rights, your reproductive rights, and it is a healthcare issue. And all these things. And then, of course, in the case of guns, guns are a wedge issue. They drive a wedge between people. You have the Republicans. The Republicans are saying, we want guns. Second Amendment. And I agree with that. I'm a Second Amendment absolutist, virtually. I don't believe in gun control. And that includes rolling back the bump stock ban. So that's my opinion. But they'll say, you can't get rid of our Second Amendment. And then the Republicans, the propagandists in the Republican side, they'll say, well, if you vote for the Democrats, they're going to get rid of your Second Amendment. And, they'll probably do something in terms of gun control. They've talked about it. They've ran on it. Their rhetoric has involved it quite a bit. So there's some veracity probably to that claim. But it does drive a wedge between people. And it tells you, well, you better not vote for the wrong side because you're going to lose on that one issue, that very important issue. And there are a lot of one-issue voters out there that only worry about just one or two things. Marijuana, wedge issue. Do you want your marijuana? Now I think that this is becoming a bipartisan thing. They're seeing the benefits of cannabis, of marijuana. They're thinking about maybe taking it off of Schedule 1, regulating it, doing some good things with it. But for a long time, it was like, if you're on the left, you're for it. If you're a conservative Christian on the right, you're against it. So you better vote for the left if you want marijuana. There's another wedge issue. And so they're going to use a singular issue. And anybody that considers himself a one-issue voter can be easily controlled by a wedge issue. It's just the way it is. It's just the way that mechanism works. If all you care about is war, well, you're probably screwed in this country. War isn't really a wedge issue. It's something that would become accustomed to just interventionism. Although President Trump is doing a pretty good job of generally easing up on that, being a little bit more of a dove. But with people like John Bolton there advising him, he could become a hawk at any moment. Now, I don't really believe that. I think that Trump likes the optics of having John Bolton, a well-known warmongering hawk. He's scary. He's somebody there in the room that can give you the extreme, absolute, pro-war position. And then you have doves in the room as well that can give you the anti-war position. And then Trump, looking at both sides, comes in and says, well, the truth lies somewhere in between. I'm going to make a decision based on both sides. I'm not going to just take a partisan position of pro-war or anti-war, but I'm going to take a pragmatic, nuanced position on this. So that's wedge issues. There's plenty more. There's plenty more wedge issues. Anything that seems like that you could be a one-issue voter about. I'm trying to think of another one really quickly, but if you know any good wedge issues, place them in the comments section below. So, now, regarding wedge, we also have identity politics, which in some cases, in some contexts, is referred to by me as the modern religion of social justice, intersectionality, social or cultural Marxism, really collectivism. This is putting people into groups, not viewing them for their individual character, and notably not viewing them as Americans first, but viewing them by, say, their class, their race, their sex, their gender, their religion. All these different things. Some of their characteristics immutable, some not immutable, but this is placing them into large groups and then trying to divide people up by those groups. Now, this is best known, probably best known with the Southern strategy in the 1960s, putting working class whites against blacks, largely in the South, where they wanted to make it seem to the whites that the blacks were a threat to their prosperity and so forth, and so they used this racism, and that's what identity politics truly is. It is racism, it is otherism, it is sexism. It's all those things, regardless of how somebody might want to frame it and say, well, Jeff, all politics is identity politics. You're doing this because of your identity. No. I'm viewing you by your character, your merit, your flaws. I'm not looking at you by your color skin or your religion or your sex or your gender. I'm saying, if I were running for president, I'd say, are you an American? Do you have American values? Are you somebody that came over legally, a legal immigrant that wants to be an American, and anybody that I'm going to have as a constituent? I want you, Americans and prospective Americans. I don't want to be going, I want you, white people. I want you, Asian people, black people, Hispanics, Native Americans, anybody by their race or their ethnic background. I want you, men. I want you, women. I want you, trans and intersex people. I want you, adults. I want you, children. Like, I wouldn't do that. I want everybody to vote for me. I wouldn't use identity politics. Now there are some ways, somebody could make an argument and say, well, that you are appealing to certain aspects of the, to certain classes. You're appealing to the working class. You're appealing to the business class. You're appealing to the rich. You're appealing to the poor. If you're a populist, you're appealing to the poor in the middle class. And if you're like a neoliberal or a neocon, you may be looking at the donor class and going, well, I want your vote, 1%. You business Democrats and, well, Republicans and so on and so forth, right? So there is this bit of identity that can't be erased from the discussion. Like at the end of the day, certain policies benefit certain groups more than others, but they will use identity politics to divide us up, to say that if you vote for a Democrat or if you vote for a Republican, whoever you vote for, it'll be a big problem, depending on which side that they're on, trying to persuade you to their side. They'll use your identity. They'll say, well, you're a black female. In the intersectional world, that's double victim. Okay, now that's not how I view it, but this is how the modern religion of social justice breaks it down. Okay, you are being oppressed. You are a victim. That's what they think of you. They think that you're just helpless, that you don't have your own agency, your own character. It's not the truth. We all have our own individual agency. We all have our character, our merits, and our flaws. We are doing a good job or we're doing a bad job, but we are responsible. We are accountable for our actions and for our words. And identity politics puts that all aside and just says, well, you're in this group based on profession, religion, a mutable characteristic, whatever it might be, and they just say, that's it. You should vote for this side. But of course, the Republican Party right now isn't really focusing on identity politics because they realize that for this paradigm, the bubble burst on identity politics in 2016 when President Trump was elected. We could have had the first female president, and it would have been great, at least the female part, not the Hillary Clinton part, but that was the identity politics angle. Vote for me because I'm a woman. Don't look at my character. Don't look at my past. Don't look at my background. Don't look at what I've done. Don't look at how I've helped destroy Libya and bring on the migrant crisis in Europe and make the migrant crisis in America even worse. Don't think about those things. Just focus on my womanhood. That's identity politics. Okay. Now, I was a Bernie supporter back then. I'm going back and forth now. There's a good chance that I'll vote for President Trump. But I was a Bernie supporter back in 2016. And I was talking about ideology. I was talking about, oh, he has this sort of quasi-socialistic program. And people were saying, no, identity politics. You need to vote because it's a woman. That's all that matters. I'd say, well, wait a second, hold on. What are her policies? I don't care what her policies are. She's a woman. All right? That's an old white male. That's all that matters. That's identity politics. Now, if you like identity politics, that's fine. I'm not casting judgment on disciples of the modern religion known as social justice, which of course seeks this sort of axiom of equity and equality, this moral virtue and universal truth, through otherism, altruistic racism, altruistic sexism, casting people by their group, oppressor, oppressed, and saying, well, you're the victim, you're the bully. I don't see that. I see character. I see merit and flaws. But who am I to judge? I am not a prophet, pope, or god of a modern religion. I'm actually a Richard Feynman agnostic. A Richard Feynman agnostic, meaning that I'm essentially atheistic, but I'm a little too polite to say so. And, really, I'm not sure if God exists. I'm not sure if this is a simulation. I can never be sure. So if I'm not sure, I sit on the fence. So they'll also use, if you're a young person voting for the first time, they'll use fear, anger, and shame. So they will rile up your emotions. They'll use very divisive news stories. They'll paint people as absolute villains. There'll be people all over social media saying, they'll be virtue signaling. They'll be morally crusading to say, how can you ever possibly vote for a woman like Kamala Harris that put all kinds of people in prison, all kinds of people of different color in prison for truancy and these tiny crimes? Like, is she supposed to be a beacon of social and criminal justice? Or they'll say, Trump, he's an otherist, orange man bad, concentration camps, Nazis, white fascists, alt-right fascists, white supremacists, white nationalists, Hitler, orange man Hitler. They'll use this sort of, fear. And they'll say, well, you can't vote for Joe Biden. He touches young girls. Shame, they'll say. Bernie Sanders, his wife had that issue with when she was working for the Vermont College. She laundered money or something. Look it up. I'm not sure what the exact story was, but there was some controversy. They'll say, how can you support somebody that does that to the college? They'll just try to moralize, and they'll try to bring you in and say, shame on you for having a different opinion. Oh, you listened to Jordan Peterson talk? You listened to Jimmy Dore? Phew. No way. They'll make you scared, they'll make you angry, and they'll fill you with shame and guilt. And they'll say, if you were a better person, you would vote the way that I want you to. Don't you know the world is going to end in 12 years? No, I know AOC didn't. She came out and said, that was just a joke. Yes, the modern religion of global warming is a joke, AOC, but that's a case of using fear to control you, saying climate change, if you don't vote for the Democrats, you're promoting the end of the world. Shame on you. Shame on you. And then they make people look at the other side, the right. They look at the right, and the right's not going crazy over this. The right's not worried about climate change, global warming. The technology is there that is allowing us to do things like, pull carbon dioxide out of the air and clean our air, water, our oceans. There's all kinds of technology in the works and currently working now that's making the world a better place. Solar and wind are becoming more economical to use. They're becoming more efficient over time, although they're not there yet for a large scale. You have generation 3 and 4 nuclear, which eat nuclear waste for fuel and never melt down. So nuclear is not, if you watched Chernobyl and you're scared, if you've got the fear and the anger that people are advocating for nuclear, fear not. That was just propaganda. Back to A. So you'll see plenty of that fear, anger, and shame to use to control us, to make us slide into the right box and pull the right lever, press the right button, D or R, or whatever it might be. And of course, all of this comes with a healthy dose of virtue signaling. So people will go out there and they'll say, again, here is something that's more moral. I'm doing the virtuous thing. I am pointing out children in cages. They might be Obama-era detention facilities, but no, I'm seeing this problem. I'm seeing that we should think of the children and stop the concentration camps. The concentration camps. This is linguistic propaganda. Okay, this is twisting reality, twisting words, taking a frame from your memories, a frame from your education, from the distant past, 75, 80 years ago. If you go all the way back to FDR and the detention facilities, the concentration camps for Japanese Americans, they're bringing you all the way back to the 1940s. Or if you look at China, you look at how they're holding about 3 million Muslims. I forget the name of the group, but look it up. They're holding 3 million Muslims in concentration camps in China. They want to frame our border situation, this basic border detention, basic, maintaining the sovereignty, maintaining order on our border, maintaining our country, making sure that 125,000 people can't just rush the border, crash the border, slide under the border. Don't go to a port of entry. Don't legally try to immigrate, but illegally immigrate, become an illegal alien. I mean, these are all terms for the same thing. But they'll say they're all 125,000 are asylum seekers. They are refugees. Refugees. And I'll say, well, there's probably a couple of refugees in there. There's also a lot of child traffickers. There are women being raped on the way over. There are drug traffickers. There are gangs coming through. There's plenty of people coming through that are just going to go on to our welfare system. They're not going to become a productive member of our society. So why doesn't China or Russia or another country take these individuals on? Like, why is it the responsibility of the United States? They never have answers for that. No. The things I've learned in the immigration debate, people virtue signaling that there's infinite abundance and that we are only limited by the words we use to describe these things. So they'll say, nations are just a construct. Borders are just a construct. Sovereignty is just a construct. The welfare state? That's just a construct. Taxes, that's just a construct. They'll say all this different stuff. They'll just kind of move the goalposts around, and they think, their intentions are good. Their intentions are great. Don't get me wrong. In a world of infinite abundance, where I had a genie and I had a bottle and I rubbed the bottle and a genie came out and I said, I want world peace and I want every last person on this planet to have something, to have a home, to have shelter, to have food, to have happiness. If I could do that, I would do it like that. I'd snap my fingers and do it. But that's not the world we live in. We live in a world that's imperfect and that there's atrocities occurring every day. But that doesn't mean that we're going to allow our border, we're going to allow our border to be broken, our country to be invaded by anybody that comes here and can mouth the words asylum seeker. I'm sorry. If that makes me not very empathetic, I am sorry. I'd like to help people that are in need. But if we allow every single person that's in need to come here, to come in and to go on our system and for us to pay for them, well, we are not able to do that. Okay, we aren't able to save the world that way. Our country would not be a country for long. Okay, I hate to say that. I would love to be able to provide and provide and provide, but the world is not one of infinite abundance. Resources have a limit. They have scarcity. We should have a better immigration system. We should have immigration reform. We should make it easier to have a path towards citizenship. I think we can all agree on that. And we should have humanitarian detention facilities. But these people, if they're coming here illegally, they can't stay forever. Refugees, like the Dalai Lama says, refugees eventually have to go back to their home country. And maybe we should help out their home country. Maybe we should give them aid. But the people of this country, they want to have a country. They need to have a country, you have to have a border. All right? And to have a welfare state, that's successful and doesn't tip over. You need a strong border. It's just the way it is. I hate to be the bad guy, but you know what? It's easy to destroy things. It's harder to create and sustain them. All right, so these are the hard answers. These are the hard questions and the hard answers. You know, I wish I could virtue signal. That's the easy way to get votes. Just say, well, we want to give people everything. We want to give free health care to everybody. We want to, save everybody. We want to take money from the rich and give it to the poor. Look, that all sounds great. Like, in principle, I like it. I like it. Let's do it. That's why I was for Bernie in the first place. I like it. I like it. But it's not sustainable. You'd have to destroy what we have now, which is already teetering because of the grand national debt and all the problems we have in the world, the war that could break out if we don't continue to do things the way we are. It's a good thing we're using economic sanctions instead of actually firing on people. We're actually working towards getting out of war. But I'm not virtue signaling right now. I kind of am. Someone would say, well, it's virtue signaling all the way down. You're signaling your virtue of not signaling your virtue. It's all just virtue signaling. It's like outrage culture. It's outrage all the way down. You're outraged over my outrage. You're outraged over my outrage. You're signaling your virtue about not being a virtue signaler. It's just, listen. Slow down there, Tiger. I'm talking about how they're using their morality. We are moral. We allow free ice cream for all. That's easy. That's easy. I could do that right now. Like I said, I could snap my fingers and everybody would get everything. That's called infinite abundance. If we have an order, we have law, we have government for a reason. To maintain order. So it's the president's duty, it's Border Patrol's duty, it's ICE's duty to maintain our immigration system so it doesn't get overwhelmed like it is now because we don't have a strong border. We don't have a strong border wall that we're trying to build. But the same people that are saying children in cages and virtue signaling all day, and they will be through the election, so this is pretty pertinent, they'll keep on going and going and going on this and say that everybody that disagrees is a Nazi. Everybody that disagrees is a white nationalist or a black nationalist or whatever you might be. Like I've actually seen white people punching Hispanic people and saying, you people are racist for wearing your MAGA hat. I think the person punching somebody else that's of a different race or ethnic background is the racist, my friend. But when you're in clown world, when postmodernism and absolutism and guilt by association, and as my friend Tyler says, guilt by conversation becomes a thing, it's down is the new up. It's topsy-turvy town, as Tom York would say. So if you intimately acquaint yourself with these terms, you'll have an easier time finding your truth. And have fun voting. I definitely recommend it. Vote. Exercise your civic duty. And help strengthen our democracy. 2 more tweets for you today. So, I could see how some people are getting a little bit stressed over current events. So I say, stressed about current events? Try to spend time outside of your usual social circles and media sources. Go outside! Go outside! You'll find some fears of yours decreasing. Less fear, clearer thinking. More headspace, faster processing. And you can overcome life's little defeats with finesse. So, yeah, I would say if you're experiencing a mass depression because you're in an echo chamber where the world is shit, Orange Man Hitler is president, and I'm outraged over this, and I'm outraged over that. I'm a disciple of the modern religion of moral panic. Everything that's happening, I'm concerned about our concentration camps, as I was saying in the previous tweet. You know, I'm concerned about things that I care about. Free speech. I'm worried about free speech. I am. There's good reason to. But I can't obsess over it. I need to step away. I need to go outside, put the phone down, put the computer down once in a while, and just take in the outdoors, take in the beauty of the world, and realize the world isn't shit. Things aren't that bad, especially for me, especially for you, probably. I would hope. I hope you're doing well. Things are not actually perfect in my life. We have some family issues going on, but again, I don't try to harp on them. I don't focus on them. I know how to step away and take a break from the stress before it takes me over, before it destroys me. And that goes, of course, for the internet culture too. Know when to step back. So, try to get outside of your echo chamber a little bit. If you think that it's getting a little bit too depressing, if you're a victim of mass depression, like in my tweet, massively depressing, where you're being told that you should disassociate from your family, anybody that disagrees with your political ideology, as mundane as it may be, if you're just a Democrat and your mother and father are Republicans, and you're like, Mom and Dad, I'm moving out. Why? You voted for Trump. Maybe you need a break. Maybe you need a break. It's possible. So go outside, enjoy the summer air, get some oxygen, get some light. Light can help our brains process things a little bit more vibrantly and quickly. Just getting all that warmth, getting that energy from the sun, okay? That's why I make my tweet videos in the window. It helps. So you'll find some fears of yours decreasing if you get out of your place where you're feeling fear. If you change your media sources, if you're getting the same negative messaging day in and day out, maybe it's time to step out and try to find a glass that's half full as opposed to one that's half empty all the time. Okay? You know what I mean? There is this power to positive thinking. There is this mind over matter, I say, that allows us to sort of just to think bigger, to look. This is why a number of people believe in God, by the way, or they believe in Allah, or they have a higher power or a supreme being, a deity that they look to. Not like a modern religion like social justice or censorship, or institutions, which are just authority figures, media, state, and academia, but actually they look towards a larger power, a higher power that they can't see. Something greater than themselves, something to aspire to. And that helps them be more positive. They're not just looking inward and seeing, no way out from this existence, no way forward, looking inward, and imploding. They're looking upward, looking forward, and seeing greater possibility in their faith. So, yeah, you want to change. You don't want to stay listening to the same feedback loop, the same echo chamber full of negativity. If you're not going to at least listen to both sides, listen to another side that might be more positive, then step back. We don't want you having a breakdown, all right? We don't want you to have any sort of nervous breakdown. So overall, once your fears decrease, you'll have clearer thinking, okay? You won't be so depressed. You won't be so hunkered down, so held back by all this negativity. You'll have a little more perspective. You'll have a chance to think, to get out of the kitchen where it's so hot, like it is in this window, and really just think it over. Take some time to think it over. With more headspace, you'll have faster processing. Your brain, which is an organic computer, can actually get things done and look at things in a more objective manner. You know, you're not in the fire, you're looking at the fire, and you keep on stepping back and stepping back and stepping back. And with this, you can overcome life's little defeats with finesse. And that's what I like. I want people to feel empowered. I don't want them to feel like victims. You know, I don't, perpetrate or perpetuate or any of these things, the social justice, because I think it's a way of creating victimhood, making victimhood a fetish, keeping people trapped in their victimhood. All right. You know, they view themselves as the oppressed. They have no chance, and they view other people, they villainize and demonize other people as the oppressor. They have no chance to get out of this dichotomy, because they've characterized themselves, they've identified as somebody that's a victim, somebody that's being oppressed. You know, like they don't feel empowered. They feel like they're powerless. And even if they don't have a lot of money, even if they don't have a lot of prospects, you know, it's good to think positive, to stay in a positive headspace and not let depression take you over. I know it's difficult, but I believe in you. You can do it. Trust me. You're stronger than you think. You got this. One more tweet for you today. So you might have heard that I'm also on BitChute now, and the way that I got over there was using their importer tool. Now, of course, if you have a BitChute account, you can also put your YouTube ID. If you're a content creator, put your YouTube ID into your BitChute account, and it'll actually auto migrate your videos. Pretty cool. But then there's the importer tool, and even some other larger content creators like Feminist Frequency and Scott Adams are now on BitChute, because you can just press one button and get your entire channel from YouTube to BitChute. It's a great way to utilize the free market and to make sure you have a backup in case YouTube decides to knock you off like they did for a while, Black Pigeon Speaks and others. And of course, if you do find me on Gab, remember, they have their Dissenter app. It lets you comment on any URL online. So if the comments section of your favorite YouTube video is gone, if the comments section of your favorite news article or one that you'd like to comment on is gone, get on Gab, try the Dissenter app. It's a great alternative to Twitter, and it has that Dissenter feature. And it also has a free speech web browser, which is pretty cool. And yeah, BitChute has monetization. Minds.com has monetization options. You can create content. It's kind of like Steemit. I don't really use Steemit, but that's also another one that lets you monetize your social media posts, your videos, just like YouTube, but probably without all the censorship. You know, they're demonetizing based on word usage. They're looking at scripts full of everything I said in this video has been written. It will be, transcribed, and they'll go through and they'll say, well, this content shouldn't be here. Probably not this video, because I keep it pretty tame. I'm not very edgy, y'all, but BitChute doesn't have that issue. So there was this word that was going around last year, and I've heard it a couple times here and there. Baffled. I'm baffled by that. You're baffling. This is baffling. I'm baffled. So I say here, baffled and upset over an opinion that another person finds perfectly logical? Next move, if you're so inclined, would be, good, I should learn more about this subject, so that I better understand other perspectives, and bad. That person is stupid, uneducated, evil, delusional, or unaware. So, if you feel like you're talking to somebody and their opinion is completely crazy, it might be. It might be. But there's also a pretty solid chance, higher than 50%, that if they can eloquently explain themselves, if they can give you references, if they can give you sources, well, it's not as crazy as you think. You just have to do some reading. You know, get out of your echo chamber a little bit, as I've said many times during this video, and actually take the time to look into this other ideology, this other philosophy, or this whatever other side of this topic that is baffling you. Take another look. If you're baffled and upset over an opinion that another person finds perfectly logical, the good way to go is to learn more about the subject, and so that way you can actually better understand. Now, you may not agree. You may have to agree to disagree, which happens, as you know, quite often on the internet and elsewhere. But at least you'll be a little bit more informed. You won't be just looking at it as, oh, that person's stupid or delusional. That's the bad way to go. You know, so you disagree with somebody and the first thing you think is they're an idiot, they're stupid, delusional, uneducated, evil, or just unaware. And again, they may be. It may be evident in the behavior they have. What they're saying might be extremely naive, and there might not be much hope for them. But I say, you know, if you're really baffled, you're talking to somebody that went to college, not to say that, you know, the modern institution of academia, of institutions, the modern religion of academia as an institution, experts aren't always right? You know, Richard Feynman said that science is the belief in the ignorance of experts. So I say, you know, subject matter experts are likely more informed, but they're not perfect. They're human beings. That said, if somebody's like a scientist or they're a professor and they're saying something that baffles you, you're just like, how can this possibly be true? I can't understand this. This guy is crazy. There's a good chance that you could do a bit more research, and that way you'll have a more informed perspective, and again, may disagree, but at least you'll understand that they're not crazy, they just are looking at it from a different angle. So, and of course, in the Scott Adams world, there is the phases of awareness. The first phase, there's 4 phases. First phase is that your side is right and the other side is stupid or evil. The second phase is your side is right and the other side is delusional. And then you have Yanni and Laurel. That means that 2 people can look at one situation and see 2 different things, 2 different perspectives lead to 2 different, like a subjective reality. And then level 4 is woke, spot the trigger. So I think Scott talked about this in a video last year. It's out there somewhere, Summer of Love, something like that, from 2018. But, you know, spotting the trigger is like figuring out what actually gets people from different sides of a discussion triggered, what actually creates a sort of emotional appeal in them, and what triggers them to be angry or sad or to change their position, to change their decision. Like, what is the X factor that makes them have that opinion in the first place? So once you step back and realize that everybody looks at things in a different way, you can start to spot, oh, this is the specific thing that Jeff Tidwell, you know, will be triggered by. You know, if you attack free speech, for instance, or freedom of association, Jeff Tidwell will be triggered by that. There's a trigger that'll get him emotionally involved and make him want to fight for the human right of free speech. If you threaten it, that's one trigger. So, as I say, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. Now, always remember, everything I said tonight might be wrong. Or, everything I said tonight might be right. Or, perhaps some of it was wrong and some of it was right. I think that makes a bit more sense. So, once again, I can be found Real Jeff Tidwell on Twitter, Real Jeff Tidwell on Gab, Blade JB343 on Minds.com. Check me out on Parler, Real Jeff Tidwell. Telegram, Jeff Tidwell. Hey, we have a theme here, don't we? I'm now on BitChute, so if you're not watching this on YouTube, try me on BitChute. I enjoy getting more subscribers and commentary there. That might become closer to my primary platform with time, but I do enjoy uploading on YouTube for now. Google, thank you for the good job. And once again, thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts about this video, leave me a comment below. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe here on YouTube. And of course, have a great night.